Eating a plant-based diet is healthy. Plant-based diets can reduce your risk for heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, and certain types of cancers. Among seniors, plant-based diets are associated with decreased frailty and even improved longevity. You can't lose. Our guest on this week's Health Talk will describe how a plant-based diet can benefit your health. So stay tuned. Hello, I'm Dr. Eric Mazur. Welcome to this week's Health Talk. Our topic today is healthy tips for a plant-based diet. My guest is Lauren Timmerman. She is the Clinical Nutrition Manager at Oral Hospital. She's been on before. Welcome to Health Talk, Lauren. I always look forward to these shows because I don't eat as well as I should. I know that, and so I always learn something.
Absolutely. No, thank you for having me, Dr. Mazur. I'm excited to be here again this year and talk a little bit about, the plant-based diet, some different foods, and some new health trends coming up.
So tell us about what do you mean by a plant-based diet? Now, we're not talking about vegetarianism, are we? Or are we talking about the same thing?
It can be kind of a vague term, especially, what's touted in the media these days. I personally like to think of a plant-based diet as, really combining a lot of plants and having meat as more of a side dish, any meat-based products as a side dish, and really focusing on fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Some people can go and just have a full vegetarian, vegan diet. It's possible, but again, I like to focus on, those fruits and vegetables.
So we don't have to swear off an occasional piece of meat or occasion. And
Correct,
do you include fish in a plant-based diet? Because I know that's part of a Mediterranean diet. And maybe you can even help separate out what a Mediterranean diet that's gotten so much publicity from a plant-based diet.
Right. So the Mediterranean diet really is, like you were saying, there's fish. It incorporates some of the healthy olive oils and omega-3s that you want in the diet. Again, the Mediterranean diet does focus on a lot of fruits and vegetables and kind of has, meat and red meat and chicken on the side as a side dish. Same with sweets and desserts. So they are very similar diets. They're both, I'd say, very healthy and can have some benefits to them for sure.
Well, before we leave the Mediterranean diet, let me tell you something I don't entirely understand about it, and that is, I know it includes a lot of oils, which are calorie dense, nuts, which are calorie dense, and I guess I know the answer to this. I'm not supposed to eat too much of that stuff, but it just seems to me that pasta. It seems easy to get a lot of calories in a Mediterranean diet without trying too hard.
And that's true. And some people, portion control is very key here. So those oils, like you were saying, and the nuts can be very calorie dense. And so what comes into play is really making sure your portion sizes are correct. Some people may look at it as a tablespoon, and how do you visualize that without having your measuring spoons? A tablespoon, for example, of peanut butter is about the size of your thumb, so about that much could be a tablespoon. With nuts, really having like a small handful. So again, it's kind of focusing on that because they do have those health benefits to them. The mono unsaturated fats and polyunsaturated fats are, really good for your heart.
Those are liquid fats, largely?
Correct, yeah. And so those can really contribute to a healthy diet, but you're right, in terms of losing weight and watching, your calories, it can be difficult to meet that with those high oils and high fat products.
And again, before we get all the way into plant-based, do you have any secrets for portion control? I think, I look around, I've got a lot of friends here, and I know we all struggle. I look at what is suggested as a portion control. I remember we've had dietitian experts on saying a portion of meat the size of a deck of cards. To me, that's an appetizer. It's or it's something. So what is the key? I mean, is it up here? Are people more hungry than others? I was speaking to a guy the other day on the phone, another physician, who said he doesn't eat to live. He doesn't live to eat. He eats to live, and it's just he stops. I watch some of my 6-year-old grandchildren. They get full and they stop, and yet as an adult I find that eating has become such a pleasure, a celebratory thing. I keep doing. So how do you? I'm talking too much, but I think it's a problem a lot of us face. Is there a way to get from sort of where most of us or a lot of us are to portion control that doesn't feel like constant deprivation?
For sure. It can vary person to person. Food is more, personally, I believe food is more than just fuel. I mean, there's so many other different components to it, like you were saying, celebratory, enjoyment. So when it comes down to it, I like to suggest for people taking, smaller bites, chewing your food. When you are having that enjoyment aspect out of it, really taste it. A lot of people, it's easy to kind of eat quickly, especially the time that we live in now. We're always go, go, go. Another thing I would say is try to fill up your plate with, more of fruits and vegetables first. So like if you're having a salad, leafy greens are going to be the lower calorie but more nutrient dense. And filling that up maybe halfway first, and then going to putting on like the meats onto your plate, or some of the more rich foods such as pastas and things like that.
I remember I had lost several years ago. I had lost 55 pounds successfully, and I remember some of the things you said really do ring true. I remember during that time I cut my food very small and deliberately. I remember sitting down ahead of the meal and saying, I'm going to have this much and no more, not deciding whether I was hungry after the first portion, but just putting an intellectual stop at the end of it. Because I guess, let me ask you, do some people fill up or have the sensation of filling up faster than others? I found that I can eat and then suddenly I'll feel full, but it's after I've overeaten, whereas some people seem to feel full when they've eaten the right amount. Is that, are we born with that? Is that something we can program?
Absolutely. I mean, it's very much different for everybody, and everybody's hunger and fullness cues are different based on, what you're born with, your lifestyle, how much exercise you get throughout the day, how much you eat throughout the day. Sometimes if you go a long period of time without eating, you can either become ravenous, or some people it even becomes the opposite and you almost lose an appetite.
Is it better to eat smaller amounts through the day rather than to sort of starve yourself? Actually, one of the trends I know my kids are interested is the starvation diet, where you don't eat between, from the time you wake up till 6 in the evening, and then you're allowed to eat everything you want between 6 and 10 or 6 and 11. Do we know whether there's data on whether that's good or bad or neither?
The fasting diets can be very tricky. There is some data saying that it can be helpful in certain ways if it's done, correctly. But at the same time, too, it does also leave people at risk for eating too much. Again, you're starving your body. Your body has these very, let's say, is programmed, back in, for hundreds and hundreds of years to where food was scarce. So people do have that, those hunger cues that are left in them from their ancestors, where it can be very difficult to you really not follow what your body really needs. You're just going to be overeating a lot of those calories towards the end of the day if you starve yourself for the beginning portion.
So let's transition to the plant-based diet, because that may be part of the solution to some of these issues. Why a plant-based diet?
So plants offer us a lot of different things. Fruits and vegetables, they have a lot of fiber, a lot of antioxidants. They can really help boost your immune system, whereas they find a lot of the standard American diet people aren't getting enough of. So, the standard American diet mostly consists of more fast food items, more meat-heavy foods, So that fiber and the antioxidants that you find in fruits and vegetables is lacking. So transitioning to opting to have more of that in your diet can really be helpful long term. For not only your digestion, but also making sure you stay fuller longer, but also, again, boost the immune system to help ward off any, colds or illnesses that kind of come about.
Now, plant-based, you mentioned fiber.
Right.
Fiber is largely not digested, correct? It fills you up, but it doesn't give you any calories. Can you say a few more words about that?
Sure. So there's two types of fiber, the soluble and insoluble fiber. So your insoluble fiber, like you're saying, is the fiber that's not going to be digested. So something like oats have both soluble and insoluble. Some plants have the fibrous kind of tissue that will not be digested in your tract, but it'll feed your gut bacteria. So even though you yourself can't digest it, the good microbes in your gut will love it. They'll feast on it, and it can really help generate a healthy, what people are calling your gut microbiome, or just the good
Which
bacteria.
we're really just beginning to learn a lot about, and maybe play a role in a number of diseases that we didn't know about really even 10 years ago.
And it's unique to each person, which is really cool, is that your gut microbiome can change and adapt based on your diet, based on your genetics. But it's, it's moldable, but it's also important to feed the good bacteria in your gut too.
Now, we've got less than 2 minutes left. Can you give us some examples of a good, vegetable diet dinner?
Let's see, I would say try to opt for multiple different colors. So, if you have some greens there, some lettuce, or some, I like to do sauteed kale. You can add a bit of rice on the side, maybe some brown rice. And even you don't have to go crazy, but some roasted carrots or roasted butternut squash I mix it together. And then you can even have a side of, I do also roasted tofu, or if you want to do some chicken or fish, or just thrown in the oven. But really focus on some of the greens first, some of the butternut squash or carrots, and then on the side have your protein. And it can really help have more of a well-rounded diet.
So when we're talking about a little bit of chicken or a little bit of fish, we're talking about 4 ounces, or is that too much?
For the average person, about 4 ounces is a good size for one portion. So to measure that out, I like the palm of your hand is just kind of an easy way to visualize it. Something about that size.
And 30 seconds, ask almost a silly question. Do you really eat like that?
Personally, I do. I mean, there are a couple of days, when
you're nice and thin. I sort of admire that.
Thank you. I mean, I enjoy it. I enjoy it, and I enjoy cooking too, and experimenting with different things. Different spices, different foods. Anything in the supermarket that looks a little different, don't be afraid to try it. The internet is full of different recipes.
And it's really, I know my kids do that now. They go on the internet and they find stuff to eat, and they're cooking all these unusual things. That's very interesting, and really, I think we are changing. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but I think we are changing the way we're eating in this society. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. I want to thank my guest so much, Lauren Timmerman, for joining me on Health Talk today, and thank you for watching. Please share your questions and comments by emailing us at healthtalk@newvancehealth.org. See you next time, and thanks for watching Eat Healthily.
Our fight against coronavirus isn't over. We still have to slow the spread and do our part. Let's wear face masks in public. Stay 6 feet or more from others. Follow state and local guidelines. Wash our hands frequently and stay home when we feel safe. For ourselves, for our loved ones, for our future. Let's move forward together. Learn more at coronavirus.gov.
145 over 92.
180 over 111.
182 over 100. And I had a heart attack and a cardiac arrest, and then a stroke.
your blood pressure numbers could change your life.
A lot of people don't understand, including myself, I didn't, now I do, the impact of having a stroke.
My memory is shot.
When I woke up, I couldn't speak.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
It's a tough journey.
Lowering your high blood pressure could save you from a heart attack or stroke. If you've stopped your treatment plan, restart it or talk to your doctor about creating one that works better for you. Start taking the right steps at manageyourbp.org.
It's a new life, but I'm gonna make it better. Coming back. Ask your doctor, check your blood pressure.
Vegetables should be a regular, substantial, and important part of our diets. Our guest on this week's Health Talk will discuss why it's so important to routinely add more vegetables to our meals. So stay tuned for an interesting show with a significant and practical message for us all. Health Talk is up next. Hello, I'm Dr. Eric Mazer. Welcome to this week's Health Talk. Our topic today is adding more vegetables to your meals. My guest is Lauren Timmerman, Clinical Nutrition Manager at Norwalk Hospital. Lauren, we should have you back every week, I think, to talk about this.
I know, this is so fun.
Clearly, we hear a lot about avoiding or reducing our meat intake, reducing our saturated fats, and moving towards a plant-based diet. We know that there's just innumerable benefits, health benefits, and yet so many of us find it hard to do that. So I know you're going to tell us how to do this and enjoy it, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So what are some of the tips to adding vegetables into your diet?
So I would say, don't be afraid to, when you visit the supermarket, pick up a couple different foods or fruits, vegetables that you may not usually have. There's some different squashes, some different, types of like cruciferous vegetables. But what's really cool is nowadays, food companies are coming out with creative ways to get vegetables and that you wouldn't normally see. So for example, there's a jerky coming out made out of mushrooms. So kind of having more of like a savory type of meat replacement. They also have fruit jerky as well.
How about some of the fast food joints that are coming out with vegetable-based burgers? And I've heard that they're actually beginning to taste very much like meat. Is that a worthwhile switch to make, or are you just substituting bad stuff in a vegetable?
Unfortunately, some of those products, you're really just making a substitute of meat for something that's still processed. It's really not going to have a lot of health benefit. Having a plant-based burger made out of vegetables like black beans, you can make some oats or any like leftover starchy things like potatoes. That would be a nice replacement. But some of the other products, they don't really contain some health benefits.
But tell us more about some of the healthy things and there's some new foods coming along too. So you said we were talking before the show. Tell us a little bit about those.
Sure. So this year, chickpeas are going to make more of a debut. If you haven't already seen, there's some chickpea-based pastas, some cereals that are out, some protein alternatives like chickpea tofu, which is interesting, but also some different ways to really incorporate them into muffins, energy bites, and things like that. So then there's also a couple of other products. Kelp is going to be making a kind of a comeback. Some different types of broths made out of kelp, soup bases, sauce bases, which is. So
what should you do? We should look for those in the supermarket on the shelf as, kelp soup, and just try these things. Is that what you're suggesting?
I would say, don't be afraid to shy away, because some of these different types of vegetables and fruits have the health benefits that you maybe wouldn't normally get from your diet. A lot of times it's easy to get stuck in kind of our same routines, but not being afraid to branch out and try some of these new products can really be worthwhile.
Yeah, I remember when I was in the Middle East, I had pomegranate juice for the freshly squeezed pomegranate juice,
Oh, wow.
which was not something I'd ever seen around. It was delicious.
Yeah.
It was, and I guess they eat the little seeds out of pomegranate too. It's just not something I'd ever thought about around here.
Yeah.
And it's again, so there are other fruits out there, I guess, that are making an inroad.
Exactly. And what's also really nice is there are some companies nowadays that are offering to ship or provide imperfect foods. So
I was going to bring that up. So,
yeah.
because I guess good eating is often more expensive to eat well than to eat sort of mass-produced, high calorie dense stuff. So, yeah, sort of the ugly fruit company.
Yeah.
Tell us, give us 2 words on that.
Sure. You're right. Sometimes it can be tricky to, incorporate some of those fruits and vegetables in. There are companies now that are taking those, maybe not supermarket perfect, but, still very healthy, perfectly nutritious to eat. They may just be, look a little funny. So there are companies now that will ship them to your house of any of those imperfect foods, maybe a carrot that's growing a little strange, or same of a bell pepper.
But these have the same nutritional value, same everything, right?
Absolutely.
It's sort of like buying your clothes where you get those little imperfect things and they discount them tremendously, but now there's a market in food for that. I think that's a fascinating idea and something that's worth investing in. Do they ever have imperfect fruit sections in any of the supermarkets or any of the Sam's Club or any of those large warehouses, or do you have to subscribe to one of these services?
Some supermarkets will carry them. It's best to ask. I know Stu Leonard's has a section where they do have the imperfect foods and that's
imperfect looking, not imperfect nutritionally. Right?
Correct, yes. So imperfect looking, that wouldn't sell maybe conventionally. So I would, don't be afraid to ask at your local supermarket if there's any of those options, because that is becoming more of a trend now.
Now, you also had prepared for us some snacks, some healthy eating snacks. To me, these delicious look, I don't know if everybody can see them, but they're little, I don't know whether they're muffins, but they've got chocolate chips in them. So they look awfully good to me. So tell us about what they are and why they're better for me than a cookie.
Sure. So one of these, these are my favorite kind of snacks. They're very easy to make. And what's great is they have chickpeas in them, which you wouldn't normally think. But they have oats, which are not pictured, but they have the chickpeas, some maple syrup, peanut butter, and then a little bit of cinnamon. So they're high in fiber. They have some plant-based protein in them. And they're kind of easy to eat on the go.
And so if somebody would want these, they could certainly email us at healthtalk@newvancehealth.org. I don't know whether we can post it on our website, but we'll certainly make this available through email through our email address. So, so you made these yourself. Now, what's the advantage of those over Oreo?
So they're going to be a little bit lower in sugar and lower in the refined sugars. So
use maple syrup as the sugar rather than
yeah. So it kind of has that nice little sweetness to it still, but they're not processed, and they're pretty easy to make. Anybody can have them. So just taking that little prep ahead of time, but at the same time too, you can also customize them. So add a little cocoa powder, maybe add some coconut flakes if you'd like that.
Do you bake them, or is this just?
These are just rolled up, and then I refrigerate them for maybe like 2 to 4 hours or so.
And they have much more fiber than a traditional cookie of some type, or traditional?
Yes. So I believe, there's quite a bit of fiber in them, coming from the chickpeas and the oats, which is great. Regular cookies, unless if you have maybe a whole wheat cookie, they don't have that much fiber in them.
So if you were to snack, 4 o'clock, kids are home from school and they're really hungry, 2 of these, 1 of these, what's the right snack?
Sure. For kids and they're hungry, at least 2 of these would do the trick. They're good to, keep on the go too. So to have in your back pocket. So that time between maybe lunch and dinner, pull out, 1 or 2 of these. They're probably about 100 calories, 150 calories per energy bite. So something to consider depending on your needs for the day.
Now, I know some of the granola bars that are commercially packaged are also about 100 calories a bar. And I used those during my successful dieting days. Are those, what do you think of those? Are those still too many processed sweets in those?
It depends. So some companies now kind of are able to produce something that's a little bit more whole food based, but it comes down to the label. So when you're looking at your label, kind of the more so the least amount of ingredients, the better. And again, it comes down to things that you can pronounce, things that are familiar. So you'll find some bars that have 20 ingredients on the label and are highly processed. And luckily there are some out there now that, you know, have more of whole foods in them.
Are there companies or supermarkets that are specifically making plant-based snacks and desserts that you can buy rather than make for the busy husband or wife who doesn't have time to even make these?
Sure. Luckily now that it is becoming more of a trend, you will find some more plant-based whole food products available at your grocery stores. So I would look for more of like the natural section. You know, if you go in ShopRite, if you're going to Trader Joe's even, they do tend to focus on more of those whole food plant-based items.
So certainly there are certain markets that we see that are doing that.
Yeah.
And we talked again a little bit before the show, and I don't want to talk too much about this, but food supplements have become a multi-billion-dollar industry. There's a big one now that we're not going to use names, but where they are selling capsulized fruits and vegetables. Otherwise, you can buy bottles of this, that, and the other thing, all of which are supposed to have wonderful plant-based antioxidants. In fact, there's a lot of scientific jargon that's thrown in to this. What's your opinion of these things? Should we all be taking plant supplements for our diet?
I find that, you know, the best way to get these fiber and antioxidants is from the food itself. Unfortunately, a lot of the supplements aren't regulated, such as medications maybe. They're not highly tested, so we don't really know what's really in the...
They don't know what's in them, and they're not tested rigorously for their benefits.
Exactly, so that can be very difficult, and they're also very expensive, like you're saying as well. So kind of investing in those, you might not really have an end result in what it's saying, you know, benefits for your immune system. If it's not really tested and it's not tested properly by a third party, who's to say?
I know that you can buy some vitamins that have USP on the outside, which means at least what's in the bottle is guaranteed to be, what's in the bottle is what they say is in the bottle.
Correct.
But that still doesn't mean that it just means that you're getting what it says it is. Again, we're running out of time, but there was a period of time early on in my career where we found that, I think it was carrots and some other things, improved the prognosis of lung cancer. So everybody decided that beta-carotene was the drug and was the element, and they took it out, they packaged it, they tried it, and people who took the beta-carotene alone did worse than the people that took they did worse than the average. And certainly, so there's something about the whole fruit, the whole vegetable, that we don't fully understand, that we can't take out of it and put it in a pill.
Exactly.
And that's sort of what, and there's a lot of, I think, tricky language. I really worry about because there's a lot of tricky language, immune support, joint support, heart support, brain support. That doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
That means nothing in terms of your health, and it's, as you said, very expensive.
Exactly. So again, I would really encourage people to, you know, have those plants and fruits and vegetables, adding them to your diet as opposed to taking them in a pill at the end of the day.
So a plant-based diet is great. That's what we know it works. It has tremendous benefits. Unfortunately, you can't shortcut it today. We don't know how to shortcut it with a pill.
No.
That's such helpful information, Lauren. Thank you so much for coming on. We have to have you back and talk about other strategies to keep ourselves healthy. We have run out of time. I really want to thank my guest, Lauren Timmerman, for joining me on Health Talk today. And thank you for watching. Please share your questions and your comments by emailing us at healthtalk@newvancehealth.org. Again, we can get the recipe for these delicious snacks. We'll see you next time. Eat plants. Thanks. Bye-bye.
If you've stopped your treatment plan, restart it or talk to your doctor about creating one that works better for you. Start taking the right steps at manageyourbp.org.
It's a new life, but I'm going to make it better. Coming back. Ask your doctor, check your blood pressure.